Welcome, dear brave listener. You're tuning in to Careful TV, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Whether you're tuning in during the day or late at night, thank you for choosing to spend a part of your time with me. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means more than you know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what brought you here, or even what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps this channel going, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get into today's horror story. When I first moved to Charleston, South Carolina, I was honestly just trying to reset. I've been drifting a bit after college, bouncing between jobs and cities, and my cousin offered me a spare room at her place downtown while I figured stuff out. I was 21 at the time. Rent was cheap, or rather, non-existent, because the deal was that I'd help her out with errands and watch her dog as she worked nights. It seemed fair. Within 2 weeks, I got a job at a busy coffee shop along East Bay Street. It was one of those places that stayed open late, with sidewalk seating and a rotating crowd of tourists, college kids, and the occasional street performer parked out front. My name's Naomi, and back then I liked the noise of the city. I liked walking after work with my earbuds in, catching the breeze off the waterfront, even if my feet were tired. That coffee shop quickly became a second home. The team was tight-knit, and we covered for each other when things got crazy. My shifts rotated. Morning openers, mid-shift lulls, hectic closers. But no matter what time I worked, it seemed like he was there. The first time I noticed him, it was a Friday afternoon. I was prepping a small goodbye package for one of our co-workers. Aaron was transferring to another location, and I headed out on my break to grab a card and some candy from the pharmacy down the street. Right as I stepped outside, earbuds barely in, I heard the door open behind me. Footsteps. At first, I thought nothing of it. People walk the block all the time, but then the steps match mine exactly. Not rushed, not lagging. Just there, I glanced to my right and saw a man. Tall, maybe early 30s, slight build, dark denim jacket despite the heat. He gave me a kind of crooked smile and asked if I was from around there. I told him no. Then he asked for my number, and I replied with a quiet, "I'm good, thanks." When he kept walking beside me, I snapped a little. I told him to back off, sharply, more than I usually would. He stopped walking. I remember his face, not angry, just surprised, like I'd broken some invisible script. I didn't look back again. By the time I returned to the shop, he was gone. I told Aaron in our bar back, James, about the guy, and we laughed it off. Downtown weirdos, Aaron said, waving it off like a bug. But then he kept showing up. Different days, different times. Sometimes already sitting in the corner when I arrived, sometimes walking in mid-shift. Never ordered, never said anything, just sat there, watching. I told myself he was probably homeless, just looking for AC or Wi-Fi. Our shop was known for that, but it started to feel intentional. No matter how inconsistent my schedule was, he always found the right time. My co-workers started noticing too. Hannah, one of the shift leads, would send me to the back room more often, or she'd block his line of sight when I was behind the bar. James started lingering by the entrance during my breaks, pretending to mop or rearrange patio chairs. I hated that I needed that. I hated that work no longer felt like mine. One day, maybe 2 weeks into this pattern, he finally approached the register. I'd been dreading that moment. "Water," he said. I asked for a name, keeping my voice steady. "Devin," he replied. No eye contact, just one word. He took his water, sat in his usual corner, and resumed the staring. I told our store manager, Caleb, about him again. He nodded, made a note in the manager's logbook, and said unless he did something aggressive or inappropriate, there wasn't much we could do. A couple days later, I had to use a restroom during my shift. The bathrooms were tucked around the corner from a bar, unisex side by side, out of sight from the front. As I passed Devin's usual table, I noticed him shift. Stand up. I tried to ignore it, went into the restroom, and locked the door. Not even 30 seconds later, the knob rattled. Hard. Occupied. I said, louder than I meant. The rattling continued. I froze for a second. I remember thinking, what if the lock slips? What if he gets in? Eventually, the handle stilled. When I opened the door, no one was there. I stepped out, heart hammering, and saw Devin casually easing back in his chair. He adjusted his jacket sleeve like he'd just returned from the restroom himself. I told Caleb. Again. But he just sighed and said there was no camera footage near the bathrooms and no witnesses. Devin hadn't technically done anything. That same shift, Devin picked up a drink from the mobile order counter. Not his name, not his order. Just grabbed it and walked out. That was finally enough. Caleb confronted him the next time he came in and warned him that if he touched anything again without paying, he'd be banned. Devin nodded, apologized, and left. But he came back the next day, sat in the same spot, didn't touch anything, didn't speak, just watched. I started feeling sick before every shift. I double-checked the windows walking up, hoping not to see him. I timed my breaks with other co-workers. Then came Valentine's Day. I was scheduled for a deep clean shift with Hannah. We usually locked the doors early and kept the music loud while we scrubbed equipment and restocked. I was on bathroom duty near the end of the night, around 12:30 a.m. As I stepped out of the restroom with a mop in hand, I froze. There, outside the glass entrance doors, was Devin. His hands were pressed against the glass, palms flat, his face inches from the door. His eyes were locked on mine, and in one hand, he held a pink paper heart, like something cut from construction paper, maybe from the craft bin at the library across the street. He didn't move. I did. I stumbled backward into the restroom again and yelled for Hannah. She couldn't hear me at first over the music. I shouted louder. By the time she reached me and saw him, her whole body tensed. She started yelling through the door. "You need to leave. We're calling the cops." He didn't flinch, didn't blink. His eyes stayed on me. Only when I refused to step out again did he finally walk away. The next morning, I told Caleb I wanted to file a police report. He hesitated, said he needed to check with corporate. I wasn't on clock that day to stop him by to talk. Devin showed up again while I was there, sitting like nothing had happened. That was it for me. I texted Caleb, "I'm scared. I'm calling the cops." And I did. The officers came to my cousin's place that evening. I told them everything. Every stare, every silent day, the bathroom door, the Valentine's Day incident. It took it seriously. Said what Devin had done qualified as harassment, especially with the frequency and the incident with the restroom. They told me if he came back, to call 911 immediately, and they'd arrest him for trespassing. I think Caleb finally banned him after that. Devin never came back to the shop. Months passed. I stopped checking every corner. Then one night, walking down Meeting Street with a couple friends, I saw him again. He was leaning against a lamppost near a closed gelato place. I ducked into a bodega without thinking. My friends followed, confused. When I finally explained, they took turns peeking out the window until they said he was gone. I haven't seen him since. But every now and then, when I walk past that part of town, I still glance into the coffee shop windows, just in case. I work at a coffee counter inside a massive outdoor gear store in Portland. One of those places where you can buy a fishing kayak, a fleece vest, and a protein bar all in the same aisle. It's a part-time gig I picked up while trying to figure out if I'm ever going back to grad school. It's also one of the few jobs where I could wear my pronoun pin, a small rainbow wrist cuff, and get zero grief for it. It's a pretty queer-friendly environment, or at least it feels that way most days. I'm Devin, and I was 25 when this happened. It started like one of those work days where nothing stands out. It was a Wednesday, late afternoon. I've been pulling shots for hours, mine kind of on autopilot, when a guy stepped up to the register and smiled like we were already in on a joke. He was short, maybe 5 feet 7 inches, built like a sprinter, with one of those tight jawlines and close-cropped hair that made him look like a former athlete who still trains out of habit. He tilted his head toward my name tag and said, "Devin, cool name." I nodded, already feeling that twitch in the back of my mind that said, "Pay attention." He told me he wasn't sure what to get and asked what I liked. I gave him a usual response. "I don't really drink coffee much myself, but I know what sells well." He chuckled and said, Okay, surprise me. Make me something sweet, but not basic." As I was punching it in, I noticed he kept looking at my hand, specifically the wrist cuff. He didn't mention it, didn't ask about it, just kept glancing at it like it meant something. I started making his iced brown sugar oat milk latte, and felt someone lean up beside me. It was Claire, one of the other baristas. She whispered without looking at me, "Hey, I think that guy just took a picture of you. Not like the drink. You." I paused for half a second. Not enough to mess up the drink, but just long enough to feel my chest tighten. I handed it to him with a smile and the same "practice, here you go" tone I use for every customer. He tapped the side of the cup and said, "This looks amazing." Then, pointing at my wrist, he added, "Love that. Where'd you get it?" "Local Pride Fast like 2 summers ago," I said. He grinned. "And where do I get the person it came with?" A laugh because it felt easier than freezing, but it didn't really reach my eyes. I brushed it off and said something about him enjoying the drink. He nodded, then walked off, but didn't leave. Instead, he sat at the small table nearest to the counter and didn't drink a single sip. I noticed it maybe 10 minutes later when I walked out to restock the napkin dispensers. His cup was still full, ice slowly melting. He was watching me again. That same unreadable expression. Not leering, not smiling, just watching. The whole "he's hot, but something's off" feeling started growing in my gut. It didn't help that he wasn't looking at his phone or a laptop, just sitting there, present. When I circled back with the towel to wipe down tables, I stopped near his and said, "Hey, not a fan of the drink?" He shrugged. "Not sure yet. Maybe you could try it." I shook my head. "Nah, I don't really do coffee." He looked genuinely confused. "You work at a coffee shop and don't drink coffee?" "It's a job," I replied. He smiled again. "So you work out?" I paused. "Not really. What do you think you could lift if you had to?" I blinked. "I don't know enough to do the job. The bags we carry are like 50 pounds sometimes." "That's good. I always say you should be able to lift at least half your body weight. So what do you weigh?" That was it. That last question didn't land right. It made everything else suddenly snap into sharper focus. I smiled. But it was the kind you put on when your brain starts lighting up with old trauma, old warnings. I've been in unsafe spaces before. I've been cornered at a party, drugged once in college. Didn't even make it 20 minutes before someone found me slumped near the fire escape. This felt like that same storm cloud. So I excused myself. "Sorry, I'm about to get back to closing crep." I avoided eye contact as I returned behind the bar. Claire raised an eyebrow. "He's still here?" she asked. "Yep. Still not drinking. Still staring." Our shift lead, Manny, eventually walked by and asked if we were good. I just said something vague like, "That guy's acting a little weird," and he nodded. Said he'd keep an eye on him. We were close to closing by then, so I started restocking the syrups and cleaning out the espresso machine. The guy was still at his table, still not drinking. Then, maybe 15 minutes before closing, he got up and came to the counter again. "You get off soon?" he asked. "Not for a while," I replied. "Maybe I can walk you out." I parked out back. I shook my head. "That's okay." He leaned in, smiling. "Come on. You said you're off for a bit after this, right? Might be my only chance to see you again." The room felt tighter. I told him I was headed out with friends, that they were picking me up from the employee lot, which was a lie. He finally gave this slow nod, like he tried his best and wasn't mad about it. But as he walked away, he said, "Guess I'll hang out until then, just in case." Once he was out of earshot, I immediately pulled Manny aside in the back. "I'm getting a bad feeling," I said. "Real bad." Manny didn't hesitate. "Wanted to walk you out. I was hoping I could use the side exit. You know, the one behind the loading dock." He agreed and said he and Claire would walk with me. So, After the doors locked and the last of the 4 staff left, I grabbed my stuff and slipped out with them through the back. I felt better once we were outside, until I got in my car. Across the street, parked just beyond the last row of store lights, was a dark SUV with tinted windows. Engine off. No movement. I didn't wait. I got and locked my doors and took the longest, most winding route home I could think of. I checked my mirrors constantly. No headlights followed, but the sensation of being watched stuck with me for the next 2 days. I didn't work that weekend, and when I came back on Monday, Claire told me he hadn't shown up since. I still don't know what that was. Maybe a very intense crush from a guy with no social awareness. Or maybe something else entirely. I started working at a Dunkin just outside of Kansas City when I was 16. It was my first real job, and honestly, I loved it more than I expected to. The store wasn't huge, but we had a steady stream of regulars, people from the neighborhood, commuters from the highway nearby, the occasional late-night shift worker rolling through at weird hours. I grew up only a few blocks away, so I'd walk to and from work most days unless it was raining. My parents both worked evenings, and my little brother was usually a friend's place, so I liked the alone time. It made me feel a little more grown up than I probably was. My name's Haley, and this happened during my senior year of high school. There was this guy named Mark who started coming in sometime during the spring. He was probably late 40s, maybe early 50s, and he always ordered the same thing. Medium black coffee, 2 glazed donuts. He'd sit at the table closest to the window and make casual small talk if I was on register. At first, it didn't strike me as anything weird. He mentioned he lived nearby and had worked with city maintenance for years. Said he knew my dad from back when, and that we used to live on the same street. I asked my dad about him once, and he vaguely remembered a Mark from a few houses down, but didn't think much of it. After a few weeks, Mark started showing up more often. Not just mornings, but sometimes in the afternoons too, even when I wasn't working. He'd ask the other baristas if I was in that day, and when they told him I wasn't, he'd still stay and sip his coffee, like he was waiting. The first time it really crossed the line was when I got a friend request from him on Facebook. I didn't recognize the profile picture at first. It was just a picture of a bridge somewhere, but the name made me pause. I didn't accept right away. I left it sitting in my requests for a few days before he brought it up in person. "You see my request?" he asked casually while handing me a 5. Didn't know if it went through. I awkwardly laughed and said I didn't check Facebook much. That night, against my better judgment, I accepted it. I guess I was just too young to understand how blurry those boundaries could get. That was when things shifted. He started DMing me things. Not creepy right away. Mostly comments about the weather, or a meme I posted, or asking what time I worked next. Then he started complimenting my hair, or my earrings, or my smile. Telling me I had a classic look, or that I reminded him of a girl he once dated when he was young. It was uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to shut it down without making a scene. So I just stopped responding. After a few days of silence, he messaged, "Did I say something wrong?" I didn't reply. That's when he stopped sending messages and started getting weirder in person. If I was behind the counter, he'd stare longer than usual. One time he asked if I needed a ride home. I said no, that my mom was picking me up, which was a lie. After that, I started asking my coworker Jade to take the front when he walked in. I found out later that he'd done something similar to another girl who worked there before me. Left her flowers at the front door, started showing up outside her shifts. Management didn't do much. They said unless he caused a scene, he was just another customer. Eventually, Mark seemed to back off. He still came in, but he stopped asking about me, stopped trying to make conversation. I figured he got bored or moved on. I stopped thinking about it. That summer, I picked up a lot of night shifts, closing the shop around 10 p.m. and walking the 8 blocks home with my earbuds in. My neighborhood's not dangerous, just sleepy. Quiet streets, porch lights on timers, the occasional dog barking from backyard. One night in July, I had just finished closing with Jade. She offered me a ride, but I told her I was good. It was warm, and I wanted to walk to clear my head. I lit a joint about halfway home, something I did every now and then, just enough to take the edge off the day. The route took me past the street Mark said he lived on, but I didn't think much of it. I had my hoodie up, music low, just me and the sidewalk. Then, as I turned the corner onto my block, I noticed someone standing in their yard. It was him, Mark. He was holding a baseball bat, just standing there, not doing anything, not saying anything, just watching. I tried not to look directly, kept walking like I hadn't noticed. But my heart was pounding, and my fingers went cold. I kept telling myself, maybe he just got back from hitting balls, or something. Maybe it was nothing. But then I heard footsteps behind me. Not fast, not loud, but there. My dog, Daisy, a lazy lab mix who usually ignored everything, suddenly tensed up and growled. She turned her head and let out this low sound I'd never heard from her before. And then, from across the street, I heard banging. A group of kids from the duplex across the way had started slapping their windows and yelling something, jokingly, like they were trying to be annoying. But it cut through the silence hard. That was enough for me. I took off. I ran the last 2 blocks to my house, Daisy trotting fast beside me. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know how close he was. I made it inside and locked the door, hands shaking so bad I couldn't get the chain on the first try. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I told Jade everything. She believed me instantly. She'd always thought Mark was a little off. I never filed a report. I didn't know what to say. My creepy regular stood in his yard with a baseball bat. It felt flimsy, but I changed my walking route. My brother started walking Daisy at night. Mark still came into the shop for a few more weeks after that. Never said anything to me. Never even looked at me. Then, just like that, he stopped showing up. I don't know what he wanted, and I don't want to know what he was thinking that night. But I think about those kids banging on the windows, about Daisy's growl, and I wonder if I'd be telling this story differently if they hadn't. I never thought I'd dread walking into my favorite coffee shop. It used to be the highlight of my week. A quiet booth in the back corner, a warm chai latte, the smell of roasted beans and cinnamon scones, comfort in a cup. It was the place I studied, read, wrote, decompressed after work. But now, I can't step through the door without my chest tightening. My name's Danny, and I live in Eugene, Oregon. Not a huge city, but big enough that you expect a little anonymity. I work part-time at the public library, and I'm finishing up my psych degree at the university. My girlfriend, Cass, and I have been together since sophomore year. We live together in a small duplex just off East 19th. It's nothing fancy, but it's always felt like home. Until recently. It started last fall, just as classes were picking up. I was at Blue Fern, the coffee shop I've been going to for years. It's cozy and weird in the best way. Velvet armchairs, indie music on vinyl, soft lighting that makes even rainy afternoons feel warm. I was there reading when this guy sat down in the chair across from mine. Just like that. No asking. He had this scruffy, try too hard kind of look. Hoodie with band patches, boots way too clean to be scuffed up naturally. At first, I figured maybe it was just a seating issue. The place gets full sometimes, and people share space. But then he started talking. He said his name was Jonah, said he'd seen me in there before, asked what I was reading. I gave short answers, polite but distant. Cass always says I need to be more assertive. But in that moment I didn't want to make a scene. I just wanted to get through my tea and get out. He stayed for an hour. Over the next few weeks, he kept showing up. Not every day, but enough that I noticed a pattern. If I posted a story on Instagram of my coffee cup or the pastry case, he'd magically appear 20 minutes later. He'd always act surprised. Oh, funny running into you again. But it was forced. He'd sit nearby, try to talk. Asked me if I wanted to hang out sometime. I told him no, gently at first. Said I had a girlfriend, that I was taken. That only seemed to make him more interested. He started bringing me little things, croissants, a second coffee, just in case you wanted to try the dark roast. I never accepted them. I made it clear I wasn't interested. He always brushed it off like I was joking. The turning point came in early November. Cass and I had gone to Mount Pisgah for a hike, just a regular weekend thing. I posted one photo of her in front of the river. Nothing major, just a cute candid of her laughing with leaves in her hair. That night, I got a DM from a blank account. No profile picture, no posts. Just a message that said, "She's cute. You sure she's right for you?" I blocked the account. Didn't even tell Cass at first because I didn't want to scare her. But the messages kept coming. Different accounts, always vague. Some were compliments, others were not. One sent a photo of our front porch, another a blurry video of us walking into the grocery store. I couldn't tell if it had been filmed from a car or behind a building, but I recognized my own jacket, my steps. That's when the fear hit. We started altering our routines. No more morning walks. No more late night runs for snacks. I stopped posting anything online. I even quit going to Blue Fern for a while, which broke my heart. I started meeting Cass at work to walk her home. She tried to play it cool, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she jumped at every alert on her phone. A week later, I saw Jonah outside her building. He wasn't doing anything, just standing on the sidewalk across the street, hands in his pockets, looking around like he was waiting for a bus that never came. I didn't know what to do. I just stood behind the blinds, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd throw up. I didn't even wake Cass. I just watched him. He was there for maybe 5 minutes, and walked off. I told Cass the next morning. We fought about it, about how long I'd kept things from her. She was furious, not at me exactly, but at the situation, at the fear we were both drowning in. We agreed to go to the police, but I didn't have much. No last name, no clear proof. They said they'd file a report, but without a direct threat or physical interaction, there wasn't much they could do. I felt helpless and ashamed. The weirdest part, I started seeing Jonah less after that. A couple of weeks went by without any sightings. The messages stopped. I thought maybe we were finally free of it. Maybe he moved on, found someone else to harass. Then came a flyer. Cass found it taped to her car window in the morning. It looked like a missing pet flyer at first, black and white, printed from a home printer. But when she looked closer, she saw our faces. 2 cropped photos from God knows where. One her tying her shoe on our front steps, and one of me laughing inside the university library. The caption said, "In love with a lie." We filed a restraining order that day. Paid extra to have cameras installed on the front porch and alley. I started taking ride shares instead of the bus. Cass changed her shifts at the campus bookstore. We stopped go anywhere alone. We're still here, still living in the same duplex. We can't afford to move yet, but I check the locks every night before bed. We keep pepper spray by the door. I sleep with my phone under my pillow. I don't know what Jonah wanted. Attention? Control? Some fantasy he built in his head? I just know he made us feel like prisoners in our own lives. The coffee shop still sits on the corner, warm lights spilling through the windows every morning. I've walked past it a few times, just to see if I can, just to reclaim a piece of something that was mine. But I haven't stepped inside. Not yet. Maybe one day I will. Maybe one day, I won't skin every face before I sit down. Maybe one day, it'll just be a place again, and not a beginning.